24 minutes after the hour, we are here. Let's make Pat Miles our Northwood University Leader of the Day. Northwood University is celebrating 50 years of producing leaders, and he's proving that the people in Grand Rapids don't necessarily use labels when they decide which lever to pull in the voting booth. Everyone would presumably think that conservative region would go for Republican, and he's proving that may not be the case because he's within single digits against Justin Amash, the Republican who won the nomination there for that congressional seat. Anyway, with Nicky Hale, world correspondent, I got to talk television with you. I got all kinds of things to talk to you about. Let's start first.
Okay.
With close to home. Kim Worthy, the Wayne County prosecutor, was on Good Morning America yesterday. Do you know why? She thinks that parents who miss their school conferences with the teachers at school should go to jail.
Jail? I mean,
Yeah.
That's severe, I would say.
3 days in jail if you miss the parent-teacher conference.
I mean, I agree that they should not be missing parent-teacher conferences, but jail seems a little bit on the...
Well, she thinks it's that important that they get involved in their child's education. And I guess what happens if you skip jury duty? You get in big trouble, right?
You do, yes.
Kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's your
It is.
responsibility to your family.
Exactly. If you've got children, your primary responsibility is their education and their upbringing and making sure that they're in line. And if you're not working with the teachers, I suppose you need to be penalized for that to some degree.
So she was with George Stephanopoulos on national television yesterday and said that, if you don't go to the conferences, you ought to go to jail. Some people think it's extreme. Some people don't. We'd like to know your opinion at 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Do you go to your child's parent-teacher conferences at school? And if you decided to skip it, you think you should be punished with jail? 888-900-9966. That's what Detroit City Councilwoman said yesterday. Kim Worthy. She's the prosecutor, actually, in Detroit on Good Morning America. Now, Brett Favre's wife was on also Good Morning America yesterday. She's the one everyone's been wondering what she's going to say because her husband's been accused of trying to lure, or at least invite, we'll say, is a nicer way to say it, a New York Jets fancy lady who stands on the sideline, she's also a Playboy centerfold,
Yes.
to his room when he played with the Jets.
Yes.
That's not really that shocking. I mean, boys will be boys. He's a professional athlete on the road. She's standing there, barely dressed. But he also supposedly texted her pictures of his...
Private parts?
Private parts is a nice way to say it, with a stiff upper lip. So here's what Deanna Favre said yesterday when she was asked about the situation, because her husband was with the league officials. They're doing an investigation. Here's what she said.
I can tell you that faith, obviously I'm a woman of faith, and faith has gotten me through many difficult struggles that will get me through this one.
Or maybe not faith in her husband.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think the main thing about this story is Brett Favre's been in the NFL for a long, long time, and he's had a squeaky clean image to the extent, if you look at the ads that he doesn't do, shirtless ads or anything like that. He tends to
Wrangler
do the more,
ads.
Yeah, he does the more homeboy, I'm perfect. Not that we all think he is. That's not the point. But I think this is sort of one of the last people you'd expect to see in this situation.
Is that what makes it different? Because I got to believe professional athletes invite women to their room all the time, married, single, whatever.
I mean, if they're on the road for an extended period or if they're away from their family, I mean, I assume you would expect that to a certain degree, especially if all the young ones are doing it. And
Yeah.
you're the old person sitting there going, well, why not, I don't think that it's a shocking thing, but I think her response is interesting. She didn't go out and say, it's baloney, it didn't happen.
It's not illegal to call a woman and say, well, I'm going to be in my room for a couple hours. Why don't you come up for cheese and crackers? Is it?
It's not illegal, no.
I don't even know if it's illegal to text a picture of yourself or parts of yourself to someone. I know you can't
That's a
do
gray
it.
area.
You can't do it on the sidewalk out here.
No,
but,
you can't.
But this is the new question of the modern age.
Yeah, I mean, sexting is the new thing, isn't it? I mean,
But what if she asked him to send the picture?
True. I mean, we don't know, do we?
This is why the investigation's
And
going
they're
on.
saying that there's nothing to say that it is him either. And he's saying he wasn't near his phone at the time and somebody else did it. So he said, she said, I think.
So you're saying that the commissioner in the investigation is going to have the picture and can maybe compare it to the suspect?
Yeah, I would not want to have that job. Not a pleasant experience.
Okay, now there is backlash developing over the firing of Juan Williams at National Public Radio. Maybe you've heard about this.
Yes.
He was fired by NPR, very well-respected journalist. He appeared in an interview on Fox News. Here's what he said.
I'm not a bigot, the kind of books I've written about the civil rights movement in this country, but when I get on a plane, I got to tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb, and I think, you know, they're identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried. I get nervous.
So for that, NPR said that his views were not consistent with the editorial standards of his conduct, and he was being terminated. In fact, the lady who fired him, the NPR president and CEO Vivian Schiller, said this.
His feelings that he expressed on Fox News are really between him and his, you know, psychiatrist or his publicist, or take your pick.
Well, you know, my husband works in journalism, and he teaches that. And we had this discussion last night. And the one thing that he said to me was, you know what, at the end of the day, as a journalist, you cannot express your opinion. You need to tell the story. Tell facts, talk facts, speak facts. So it's a difficult position because he did express his opinion. And especially on NPR, which is public, paid for by taxpayers, you really can't take a side. You really should just be stating facts, although he was on Fox News.
He was being interviewed. It happens all the time.
Yes, exactly.
Brian Williams goes on The Daily Show.
Yes.
They ask him about
and
things.
that's not a news outlet, though. That is a comedy show, so you really can't compare one thing with the other.
Fox is not a comedy show? Have you watched it?
Oh, right, exactly.
Sometimes it is. I mean,
right, I mean, depends who's watching, I suppose.
Well, take who's the guy with the morning show, the Dennis Miller, the comedian. He goes on O'Reilly as a supposed political expert.
Right, exactly.
And he tries to be funny.
And I think the whole point is they are, and there may have been issues in the back room that we don't know about. There may have been, this might have been opening a door, an opportunity to get rid of somebody they wanted to get rid of anyway. You don't know.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been more than what we know of, and that was just like the last drop in the, you know.
Is it insensitive for him to say that he gets nervous if he sees a Muslim on an airplane?
Is it insensitive? And yes, in our
is it offensive?
We have a very clean, politically correct world we have to live in now. So I think that he overstepped that barrier of expectations. But at the end of the day, he was stating his opinion, and they didn't like it.
Some people say, well, the government tells us, right, that we're supposed to be aware of our surroundings and extra vigilant.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And you are supposed to be aware of your surroundings.
But we're not supposed to notice details?
I don't think it's a question of detail. He just basically wrapped the entire Muslim community into one bubble and said, you know, if you're wearing Muslim attire, I'm scared of you. And is that appropriate? I don't know. I mean, they could think the same thing of us, right?
Well, things that we don't know, things that are foreign to us, can frighten us.
Yes.
He's not a child, though. He's an adult.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the mistake for him was to go on a national outlet and say that in such a public way, being that he works on a public news outlet. And we don't know. There may be some other things in the picture there, but at the end of the day, I mean, they can fire you for such a small thing. I mean, through 12, 15 years of Troy being in news, we saw several people terminated for the smallest things. So.
Did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
For saying things like? For
saying things, even doing things that they, you know, if the news organization was saying we want it done this way and they were disagreeing.
You know what's funny? If a comedian says it on stage on Comedy Central, since you mention it, people laugh. They don't get upset by that, do they?
Right. Yeah, because I think it's the whole psychological atmosphere as I'm watching a comedy show. I don't know if you ever watched Tosh.0. Have you ever seen him on Comedy Central? He is the most outrageous person I've ever seen in my life. He will offend everybody and everybody. Doesn't matter religion, race, and he just goes, and it's acceptable because he does just go at everybody, you know, even himself.
So that's different.
It's different, yeah.
And now Fox News, since he's been fired, maybe you heard this, they gave
him.
Juan Williams a $2 million contract.
Yes, isn't that interesting? They clearly like his opinions.
Yeah, I think he's gonna guest host for Bill O'Reilly every Friday is what he's gonna do for $2 million.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked out. I don't know what he was making at NPR. I guess probably wasn't $2 million.
$2 million.
But, I mean, there's certainly and now Mike Huckabee and Sarah Palin, two conservatives, and South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint and John Boehner are all chiming in that this is censorship.
Yes.
And that what happened to freedom of speech?
Exactly, yep.
Another good question.
It is, exactly. And that's a great thing for them to jump on the bandwagon because those who are passionately believers in the freedom of speech, which we do have the freedom of speech in the United States, it's a great avenue. But at the end of the day, NPR... I vehemently believe there is something else in there, not just that. They just saw that as an opportunity to get rid of somebody they didn't agree with. You
know what? I asked some people last night at a cocktail party. I was at Meadowar Jewelers, and they had a breast cancer awareness party that my wife was involved in too, Dr. Teneglia. And I said, I'm going to ask some people, you know, what they think about this. And I asked about 5 people. And most of them said, you know, it's true but you probably shouldn't say it.
Yes.
That they get a little edgy.
There are things that you should never say. I mean, I work with the public all day long, and people say things to me, and I think to myself, or they say it out loud, you know, in my public arena, and I think to myself, not appropriate.
But can't we be forgiven for making a connection between Muslims and airplanes after what happened to us in America?
I don't know if I can answer that question.
Yeah, I don't either, but it's a valid question, it would seem to me.
It is.
888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 if you have an opinion on this one way or another. We'd love to hear from you. 35 after the hour. Thanks to Troy and Nicky Hale. We appreciate it.